Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about what really happens at a supernatural convention. But before we launch into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel Dawn. I primarily write supernatural romance, monster romance, and all the good stuff. I'm best known for my Monsters of Ashwood series, and I am a longtime Supernatural fan.
Okay, Carol?
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I started watching Supernatural in season 3, started writing fanfic in 2012, and I'm currently also a published MM romance writer under Ellis Colton. And I tend to write about these two guys who find spooky stuff to do.
Lynn?
Hi, I'm Dr. Lynn Zubernis. I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor at Westchester University, and one of my big research areas is fandom. I am a huge fan of Supernatural since the beginning, so I've written, I think, 7 books on Supernatural and Supernatural fandom, including 2 with the cast of Supernatural, Family Don't End with Blood, and There'll Be Peace When You Are Done.
And Lola.
My name's Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer. My latest book is called Soul Pushers. It's paranormal young adult, though I'd like to think that old adults could enjoy it too. I have been watching Supernatural since 2005. That's 20 years. That's a long time. That's like almost my entire life.
And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern worlds are ones that Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons over the summer, so I was ready for the start of season 12, and have been an obsessed fan ever since. So let's talk a little bit. Well, first of all, let's talk about what cons you've been to. You don't have to name them all because I know Lynn's been to like all of them that have ever been held. But give us a general idea of what cons you've been to, because there are several different types. And then we can talk about the different sorts of conventions there are and what happens at them. So, Ariel?
Oh, good gravy. I've been to plenty of conventions. I've been to Dragon Con, I want to say 2 or 3 times. Obviously Supernatural Con, I think I've been to at least twice. I also do a bunch of book cons, Comic Cons. I'm a longtime con goer. We started kind of going in 2014, when my husband, who is a brony, took us and got us all into BronyCon. So we've done that, and that was like our first introduction to like cons and dressing up and all that fun stuff. So I've definitely been to quite a few.
Okay, Carol?
I went to my first Supernatural one on well, with the first Boston one, when there used to be the only Boston one. Now they've had another Boston one, but I went to the first Boston one. I skipped the following year, and then I started in 2014, and I've been to at least one every year since, if not 2, and in one memorable year, 3.
Okay, Lynn?
I do go to most of the US cons, the creation conventions, because I'm a vendor there with the book. So you can find me in the vendor room. I went to the very first Creation Supernatural convention back in 2007. And I haven't gone to every single one, but I've gone to most of them since. The only other ones that I've been to, I did go to the Rome Con, the Jib Con once, which was fun, truly fun and very different. And I went to the con that they had in Spain back in maybe 2010 or something as press. So that was a really interesting experience. But mostly I've done the creation cons in the US.
Okay, Lola?
All right, so let's prepare for a story. Okay, so in the 90s, I might have been to maybe one, and I always wanted to go to Dragon Con, but I never had enough money, so I'd cry in my cereal by myself, and I said, one day I will go. So I went in 2004. I've probably been, I would say, probably 16 times, but I've had a slew of bad luck, and I haven't been able to go back since 2017. I'm hoping every year I'm like, this will be the year, and then something happens. But hopefully eventually But I've also been to, there's a con here in Jacksonville called Collecticon that I like. I've been there several times. I've been to MegaCon in Orlando a few times. I went to, I think it's called Comic-Con in Tampa once. I've been to a lot of little cons here and there, like day cons where it's like, eh. There was a con here in Jacksonville a few years ago. It was boring as heck, except Doug Jones was there and he spoke. And I was like, oh my God, I love him so much. So that saved it from being a loss. So yeah, I've been to lots of cons.
Okay. As a fan, I've been to cons since the late 1970s when they were Star Trek cons. As an author, I've been going to cons since my first books came out in 2005. So pretty much quite a few of the genre conventions particularly the East Coast. Dragon Con is a regular. And likely at those, I'm often in the vendor room because I'm there as an author guest. I'm there as an author panelist. I'm selling books. It's a very different thing to go as an author and a pro and to go as purely a fan. So I have only been to the supernatural creation cons, although I see Jib. That's one of those, maybe someday. I see when they sometimes do the one-off ones that are, a single convention like a Galaxy Con kind of thing, where it's a 1 or 2 day, but the whole cast isn't there. So I think, in fact, I'm leaving tomorrow for the Supernatural New Jersey convention, and I have lost track at this point on cons. They're relatively recent for me, but I think I'm somewhere around 6 or 8, but don't hold me to that. So we've had the experience with other types of conventions. What is so, other than the fact that a supernatural convention is focused on the specific cast and canon of Supernatural, what makes a supernatural convention different? Ariel?
I think, at least in my experience, one of the things that makes Supernatural Con different is the accessibility to the cast. I've done a lot of different, cons with different, different celebrities, different voice actors, different and at those, it's very much streamlined, right? It's like, you get in your line, you sign, get your stuff signed, get your picture, and you're out of there. But at a supernatural convention, it's totally different. Like you're still getting in your line, you're still getting your picture, but there's more of a personal connection there. I feel like that they really do take the time to talk to you, to hug you, to, make you laugh. Even in the panels when you're just going to sit down, you've been in line for God knows how long, your feet are killing you, and it's just a whole different type of environment, I think, in how they approach the connectability to their fans.
Okay. Carol?
I think now I wasn't thinking about other cons. I was only focusing on the supernatural cons, but yeah, I've been to Rhode Island Comic Con and I've been, to an odd con here and there, not supernaturally. I totally agree about the accessibility, that you're seeing them on the panel, and you have more, it's not just like, click, click, you get a moment. And also, they're very organized. Now, when I've seen the cast or I see videos of the cast to other things, there's kind of a certain amount, it's kind of like here's this time and you have, it's just kind of random. And lots and lots and lots of just waiting forever and not even knowing if you're actually going to get it or something. Supernatural is very organized. They have a whole schedule. Here's all your stuff. Occasionally things might overlap, but they will do their darndest to make sure you get everything you paid for. If you got this up and if you have a conflict, they work it out. Things happen, of course, and the schedule might go awry. It might be running late. Sunday, J2 day is often renowned for running late at some point, but that's because the boys are taking so many pictures and doing so much. But nonetheless, it's very organized and they have a lot of things. Like they have special things for like everybody. There's a karaoke night one night. There's the concert one night where all of the band plays and the casts who members who sing all sing. And if you're lucky, you get to hear Jensen sing. And there's an event with Ruth and there's an event with this one and that one. And on the one hand, could you say, well, they don't have to have all these things. It's, you got to pay for all those things. Well, you do, but you know what? You also have a chance at an intimate experience, and they have the meet and greets, and the meet and greets are great, for the non-Jared and Jensen meet and greets, you're talking, like, what is it, like 10 people in a room with that person. I had a Mitch Pileggi meet and greet, and it was fabulous. And he's telling stories about his career, and he's the most charming and funny and, all of this stuff. And even the Jared and Jensen meet and greets, you're there with 20 people, but you're still talking, you're having that experience with them in a room like that, not in the theater and stuff. And that's, that's a real, it's a real thing, So yeah, you see them a lot, you're spending time with them a lot. And I don't think you get that at some of these, like the European Comic Cons and stuff like that, where they might have a huger assemblage. Like I know people who have worked and, volunteered at those Comic Cons, and they have like so many people. I'm like, I wouldn't even be able to decide who I want to see. But here it's just supernatural and you really get to immerse yourself in it and have these experiences. And, I think that's a really special kind of deal.
Okay, Lynn?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Ariel and Carole said, and it's interesting because Supernatural is such a unique case because there has never been a series or a film or a book or whatever that has had so many conventions devoted to just it. Like there's a lot of, Lord of the Rings cast goes to a lot of Comic Cons and stuff, but it's a different thing for the reasons that they've been talking about to have a convention devoted to one show and have the whole cast there. There has never been another show that has had for 20 years almost like a dozen conventions or more a year. So this is a cast that has gotten to know their fans in a very different way than casts who are doing like Comic Cons get to know their fans. They might have a 5-second interaction with someone in a photo op and it could be warm and they could make eye contact and acknowledge, but the actor doesn't really get to know anything about that fan. But when you're having, half-hour meet and greets and you're seeing some of the same people multiple times throughout a year and you're actually getting to know fans, now we have that parasocial relationship that I do a lot of research on. It's kind of not as parasocial as it was in the beginning. I mean, certainly it's still not a reciprocal relationship. Fans, we know everything about Jared and Jensen. They don't know very much about many of us, but they do know a little bit about their fans, and they know more about their fans in general than most actors know about their fans. So it's just like, the research on stereotyping shows that the only thing that breaks stereotypes down is when people have actual face-to-face contact with those people. So I don't know, maybe the Supernatural actors went into this having a lot of negative stereotypes about fans, but they didn't hold up because they had too much of that face-to-face contact and actual conversation. So they see their fans as fully functional, completely, multifaceted people, just like we see them. And so that's actually changed the nature of the parasocial relationship for this cast, which has been really fascinating to watch as a researcher over 20 years.
Okay, Lola?
I just yelled out, "I love you, Jensen." I was so embarrassed after I did that. I'm like,
Not the only person who's ever done that.
I know. I'm
I've
like,
watched enough con videos to know that.
I started slinking away. I was like, at the time I was like 35 years old. I was like, oh no, it's 45. Sorry. I don't even know how old I am. I was 45. So I was like slinking away. I was like, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. Why would you say that, little girl? Anyways, so my favorite part of it is the assigned seating. My 53-year-old self loves that so freaking much. I mean, I can go wherever I want and I know I still have a seat. If you've been to Dragon Con, you know how much of a sweet mercy that is. Sweet relief. No more spending 2 or 3 hours in a line that wraps around the line, wraps around your part of the line, and you're like looking at someone and you're like, "Are you in line too?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're the second form of the line." And it's like, yeah, none of that. None of that. So you don't waste a whole lot of time in line, and I love it. I mean, I will just sing those praises all day long.
Admittedly, that's in specific tickets. There is general admission for part of
Yeah.
it, but if you buy a gold, silver, or copper, then yes, you get an assigned seat. And then there are some general admission tickets, well, not general
Okay.
admission, single day tickets that
Okay.
have assigned seats, but then there is general seating behind those. But
Okay. Well,
yes,
someone
I
took that in
also
my
always buy a weekend pass because I want that to be my seat.
I want that seat. I don't care if it's the last
Yeah.
seat, which I was on the last row. I don't care. It's my seat. No one else can take
And,
it if they
and
try.
and creation promises they will not oversell the venue. So if you
That,
have a ticket, you have a seat. And
that's
can't
great.
say that of everything.
Mhm.
I think, well, I want to follow up on what Lynn said about the parasocial relationship because, part of seeing that change is we saw how the character of Becky was treated in the early appearances on the show. But Becky got her redemption arc. Becky helped defeat God and stood up to Chuck. And so, at the end, there was definitely a shift in how Becky was perceived. And of course, Becky is the fandom. Um, so I think that is informative. One of the things that I've never seen done at a convention, all these other things you've mentioned are fantastic, but if you went by yourself, or maybe you went with somebody who was going to be doing a bunch of other things and you didn't get those ops or tickets, you can sign up for the Roadhouse. And yes, it does cost little because there are materials there, but this is a place where you can go do supernaturally related crafts and games. If you want to sit and play cards with somebody, if you want to make beaded bracelets, they have all kinds of stuff that you can do in the Roadhouse. So you have some place to go as opposed to just sitting there on a bench in the hallway, kind of looking like you've been orphaned. And that's not the case at most conventions. So I think that is a terrific thing. And the whole feel of supernatural conventions is like you are having a family reunion. Now, this is even more so if you spend a lot of time on social media and you are in all the Facebook groups for the different supernatural groups. You start to recognize names. If you read fan fiction, you recognize names. And then you go to these conventions, personally for me, oh my God, I just met this fan fiction author. That's very exciting. In addition to, and I just hugged Jensen Ackles. Maybe not quite the same level of enthusiasm, but I'm getting to see people in real life that I have spent a lot of time trading photos and comments and memes and chatting with on social media about supernatural. So it's kind of like those nesting dolls where there's this level and then this level and then this level. And that, you know, at one point I was doing somewhere around 17 conventions a year as an author, not counting going to Supernatural. I've even in my most favorite conventions, I've never seen quite the same vibe like that. Yes, if you go to the same genre convention for many years, you get to know people and it becomes kind of a family reunion as well. But it's still a little bit different because it's usually multiple fandoms that you're geeking out over. Um, or you're hanging out, if you're an author, you're hanging out with the other authors. It's a very different thing. And Supernatural, just kind of no child left behind. If you go, you've got a place there. And that is, that's just a wonderful feeling of comfort that you are home. And that's something very special that I have not seen at very many conventions in the same way. So what's your favorite part of going to a supernatural convention, Ariel?
Oh, that's like picking like a favorite child. Like how can I pick like my favorite part of like a convent? But I love the panels because I love listening to people talk. So like and especially like if you've been on like a panel for Mark Shepard, like I could listen to him tell stories like all day.
Same,
Like so I
same.
love sitting and listening to everybody tell stories, about, when they were on set or just in general or if you've ever even if you haven't been to a supernatural convention, I'm sure people have seen Jensen and Jared online, just like totally like just being hilarious. So I would definitely think for me the panels.
Okay, Karen?
Well, yeah, there are so many good parts. And I also feel like your priorities change depending on how long you go, like how many times you go.
Mhm.
Um, so the very first one I went to, that first Boston was, I just wanted to meet Jared. I was
Mhm.
all about meeting Jared. Jensen didn't attend that one. So I was just all about meeting Jared. And that just made my little heart happy. And then when I went to 2014, I went to DC. I actually, for the first time, met friends I knew online. And so that was a big thrill because there was like a dozen people and we all hung out for like the whole weekend. And that was really amazing. But then also, I learned that that's the one I learned where you're there to see everybody and like all of them have their stories to tell and all of them, are interesting. And I ended up buying so many photo ops because I'm like, well, I don't need a photo op with this guy, but I'll tell you what, one look at Rob Benedict's blue eyes and seeing his energy on stage, I was like, I gotta get me a Rob Benedict photo. And so it really opened more of the supernatural world to me. um, Now that I've been to several, I mean, the cherry on top is always Jared and Jensen. You can't beat that you get to meet them, you can hug them, they can hug you. Sometimes they'll be playful with you and you can do a little playful op, and that's super fun because again, you get these little seconds of interaction that really build up into an experience, not just you know, but I would say nowadays, besides Jared and Jensen, for me, it's going to see my friends. I'm going to see my friends, and we're going to spend the weekend together doing one of the things that we love best, which is geeking out over supernatural and hanging out, you know? And that's really, for me, now the focus.
Yeah, I'll definitely second the whole playfulness. Just ask me about SpatulaCon or look at the illustration at the top of my main Facebook page. And Jared Jensen went along with that absolutely willingly.
Yeah.
Um,
I think they have fun with it too, because I
Mhm.
mean, they're taking a ton of photos. And they've talked before about they love getting and giving hugs because there's so much energy and affection and goodwill coming to them that then they're exuding, and it's this really great, positive feedback loop. But they have fun, sometimes when they're people with like, well, how do you feel about doing this, and they're like, oh yeah, I mean, they won't say yes to everything, and don't ask anyone to pick you up. Um, but they have fun with this stuff with you, and that's priceless.
mhm. Lynn?
Yeah, and they genuinely do. I mean, they both Jared and Jensen wrote about their relationship with the fandom in their chapters they wrote in Family Don't End with Blood, and like that's how they really feel. Like Jared really credits the fandom with getting him through some really tough times. Jensen really credits the fandom with helping him not be so anxious and sort of refers to the fandom as fuel, that he gets that positive reaction from fans and that fuels them and keeps them going. So I think that is very genuine, and that genuineness comes through. So I still love the panels. I mean, people laugh at me because I've been going to these for almost 20 years and like, haven't you heard every single thing that that particular actor has to say? But honestly, they are endlessly entertaining, every single one of them, and they're always coming up with new things. I often, when I'm live tweeting, especially like a Jared and Jensen panel, refer to it as pure serotonin because it's just such a feel good experience every single time. So no, 20 years later, I apparently still haven't gotten tired. I'll run away from my vendor table and play hooky and watch some of the panels when I can because I really enjoy them. And of course, I love when friends are there. I'm lucky enough now, after having done these for a long time, to have friends at most of the conventions. So I'm always looking forward to, ooh, I'll see so and so at this one. But the other thing I'll mention that I really love about the creation cons in particular is the concert, the Saturday night special. I mean, I don't know if they cast all these people with the prerequisite that they had to have musical talent because there's just an inordinate number of this cast that has like true musical talent. But I've watched those concerts evolve from something very different in the beginning conventions to what they are now. And I don't think I have ever missed a Saturday night special, including one when I had some horrible illness going on and I missed a lot of the convention, but it was not a contagious illness. But damn it, I made it to the Saturday night special because I was not going to miss that concert.
Okay, Lola?
I say the panels too. I just love sitting there and hearing people talk. I loved Mark Shepard because he went up and down the aisles and he
Yeah.
really seemed like he was talking to you. And he opened up with some very like personal stuff. Like I think his son has diabetes. I think that's what it is. He was talking about that. And it was just really interesting hearing his stories, and he's just really very engaging, and I love his accent. I've been a fan of his since Firefly back in,
Mhm.
2001 or whatever. So it's just really neat seeing him because he's like part of my history, even though he doesn't know it. That's that parasocial thing happening. He's parasocial to me.
I think that one of the things that, yes, the cast is very engaged in being there. Certainly they are getting paid well, but they're also missing time with their family, time with doing other things. And after 20 years, they're not phoning it in. I actually was wondering and asking some of my friends, do you think every now and then they rewatch the show? Because people will ask now in episode 4 of season 3, about 20 minutes in, somebody says this, and they usually know exactly what you're talking about. So I don't know whether they've just been asked this so much or whether it's burned into their brain from experience or whether they do crib a few notes before just, I can't remember everything from 20 years ago. I can't remember every detail from my own books. So I wouldn't blame them at all for that, but they know and they care and they'll answer that level of detailed question. I've also seen people at Comic Cons, famous actors who are totally disengaged. They're there, they have a fake smile, they'll sign your thing, they'll say, "Have a nice day," and they're not really there. And if you try to talk to them, they don't really engage. There's a very famous Saturday Night Live skit from 1986 called the Evil William Shatner skit. You can find it on Google. And it's basically where William Shatner as Captain Kirk, just loses it and tells the fandom to just get a life.
Uh-huh.
And then he says, "I'm sorry, that was the evil Captain Kirk from Mirror Mirror." But of course, there was that edge being SNL, where, I've met Shatner on several occasions. He may indeed feel that way, at least at certain
He's
times.
pretty renowned for being a doo-doo head.
Well, people have different experiences with people, and you always have a bad day,
He
but
banned me on Twitter, whatever.
okay. Well,
Yeah, he was getting mad because some people were saying he was cisgender and he said they were saying it in a rude way. And I just said, this is important for people and I'm sorry if they said it in a tone you didn't like, but you know, it's very important, and you are not transgender, so, you know, they were just pointing that out. Banned.
Well, and I think going back to the supernatural aspect, certainly it's important for fans to be respectful of the cast, but the point is that they really do seem to enjoy being there, and they do have respect for the fandom, and
Mhm.
so that's I think that sets it apart
And you can
from
feel that too, I think, with the fans,
yes.
just in general, like we were just saying, it's the vibe is just different, and the fans there too are definitely like, because I've encountered a lot of different types of fans at different, different events,
Mhm.
different, like multi-genre events versus niche events, and you do get sometimes, those awkward interactions, and from my memory from being at Supernatural, I didn't feel that awkwardness. It felt like everybody there kind of is on the same page, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Well, and I've just noticed that supernatural fans are so helpful. If you
Mhm.
don't know what you're doing and you're a little overwhelmed, and the creation staff is usually extremely helpful and nice.
Mhm.
But just I see fans helping other fans, and
Yeah.
it's that kind of fandom. Um, People help each other out, make each other comfortable. If you weren't friends with some people at the beginning of the weekend, you might be at the end of the weekend. Um, and that's a very different vibe as well.
Mhm.
So what's something that you haven't done at a convention that maybe someday you'd like to? It's on your bucket list. Ariel?
I don't know. I don't know what would be on my bucket list. Because I feel like too, I might change that later. Later. I think I would just on my bucket list right now. I would like to just go back to a supernatural convention because it's been quite a few years since I've gone. And I definitely would like to go back and do some new experiences because again, they're always adding new experiences, right? And they're always doing different things and different, I think the last time I went was pre-pandemic. So, there's a whole slew of cast that I haven't seen and met. So I think I would just like to go back.
Okay. Carol?
Well, I haven't been to as many as Lynn, but I don't know if I have a bucket thing. Um, I've had lots of wonderful photo ops. I've gotten to do all kinds of hug stuff with Jared and Jensen, and I've also gotten to do playful stuff with them. I wanted to go to Vancouver, and one year I did. I wanted to go to Austin, and last year I did. Um, so not looking at the European conventions, which frankly I'm probably never going to go to anyway, because I'm not, the thought of international travel just does not do things for me. um, I don't know what else I would add. I've had a Jared meet and greet, and I've had a Jensen meet and greet. I mean, I don't want to say I've done everything, but I've done everything I wanted to. There are certainly things I have not done, but none of them would even, they might be fun and I might do them someday, but I wouldn't say they're bucket list.
Okay.
So, I don't know. My con experience cup is pretty full.
Okay. Lynn, is there anything you haven't done?
I'm sure there is, but it's probably because I mean, I try to focus on the things that are most important to me, especially because I don't have a lot of time because I am actually there as a vendor, so I do try to be in the vendor room as much as I can. So if I haven't done it, it's probably because I've made the choice not to do it so that I could be doing what I'm actually supposed to be doing there. But I have found to do time to do a lot of things that are away from the vendor table. I don't do a lot of photo ops. I very rarely buy a photo op. Um, it's just, if I'm going to spend my money on something, I'm picky about what I spend it on. So, and I really like photo ops, but I guess I like meet and greets. If I have any money, I'm probably going to spend it on a meet and greet to have a conversation. I like that more than a picture. But that said, I so enjoy like when somebody invites me to be in their photo op, I inevitably have such a good time doing it with them. So I probably should think to do more of them. I probably won't, but if I had unlimited funds and time, I would do more of those fun photo ops because I do always enjoy them when I do them.
There you go. There's something for my bucket list. Uh, Unlimited funds, I would be first row. I
Oh,
wanna-
me too. Oh, I'll put that one on mine too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never
that
am, but
would
I
be
would
something
be.
that would be
Yeah.
really, really remarkable. I would love to be like, front row and that. I wouldn't even want to do VIP because frankly, they just run around a lot. You know, they get little snippets behind the scenes and things, but they are on the go. I just want to be front row.
I'm with you. I'll sit next to you, Carol,
There we
when
go.
when we win the lottery.
Yes, yes.
Lola, how about you?
Well, I just went at the bottom rung or one of the bottom rungs. So one day, if I have an extra thou, I want to do the VIP. Y'all have to tell me about it.
It's really funny. I'm not usually a photo op person. And when I
Mhm.
started going, what I had in my mind was the grip and grins from other conventions where, they don't want to be there, but fake smile, next. They're kind
Yeah.
of moving you along like a politician as the camera's clicking. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like that.
Mhm.
And so I was hooked after the first couple of photo ops, especially with Jared and Jensen, because it's warm, it's genuine. You get a chance to say something to them, and both of them hug really well. And last year I did a photo op with Jensen and Alex Calvert. And I looked at Jensen and said, with the way the world is, the safest place I can be is squished between God and Dean Winchester. And he just threw his head back and laughed and said, well, you're not wrong. And it was just such a genuine moment. And everybody's expression in that photo op is just great. So I think the fact that they are so present at the ops makes it special for me. I've honestly never seriously thought about doing the meet and greets. I haven't seriously, I usually go copper, so I haven't thought about leveling up. But I have definitely done more photo ops than I ever expected to.
And we
And
warned her.
hmm, what?
We were there. I was there when you did your first one,
Yeah.
and we were like, just wait. You're
I
like,
was
this
so
is it.
stressed
This
out.
is the one and only. I just want to have it. And we're like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what happened the first year we went. I was like, this is it. This is my bucket list thing. And like, I just need my picture with Jared. And I lost my mind when he hugged me. I don't even remember what happened. Like, and then after that, we were hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, we have blown through our time. So before we go, let's give everybody a chance to say where we can find you online. And if you have a new recent or upcoming book, tell us about that too. Ariel?
So you can find me at ariel-dawn.com. I'm pretty much on all the socials, like pretty much anywhere you can think of. I did just have a release a little bit back now, but it was in February. But Blood of My Heart, which is the fourth book in the Hunter Games series, which is connected to the Ava Crowley Vampire Slayer series, which is my interconnected world that is very much inspired by Supernatural. So if you are a huge Supernatural fan, you will find lots of fun Easter eggs in there. And I do have a book coming at the end of this month, Captured Omega with AJ Mulliken. And again, you can find me at ariel-dawn.com.
Okay, Kara?
As Carole Stokes, you can find me on Facebook, especially in the Continual group and in the SPN TFWNC group that Gail runs. As Ellis Colton, all of my links and socials and Amazon and all of it is at elliscolton.com. And I do have a new book coming out in the mid-June called The Malevolent Sea. It's a sequel to my first paranormal romance, Case of Thistledown House. And both books star two young men who are traveling around fighting spooky bad stuff.
Sounds
Okay.
fun.
Lynn?
You can find me on all social media at Fangasm SPN. You can find the two books written with the supernatural actors at peacewhenyouaredone.com. And I just signed a contract to do a new book on Supernatural that's going to be a deep dive from the very beginning all the way through the present, so 5 years out from the finale.
Fun. Lola?
I wrote a book called Soul Pushers. I released it earlier this year. It's on Amazon and Drafted Digital if you don't want to use Amazon. And you can find me at LolaLariscy.com or just Google me. You'll find me and a bunch of dead old ladies that I'm related to.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. If you spell them right, you'll find me on pretty much all the social medias. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group on Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel that has a lot of convention clips and panel clips. So look for me on YouTube, and there's a big Supernatural element there, as well as all the Supernatural panels for Continual. And my most recent book was Dead of Winter, which is in the Mark Wojcik series. Mark is a mechanic and monster hunter in the wilds of northwestern Pennsylvania. And coming up next is Times Change, which is in the Joe Max series. And Joe's an immortal monster hunter with a background from Cleveland. So in a kind of interesting way, he became immortal. And then as Morgan Bryce, Cursed is the next one coming up, and that's in my Witchbane series. And all my modern day worlds are ones that Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. So folks, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon on Continual, so we'll see you online.